Bad news for future MMOs.
So a few weeks ago, we covered this crazy story about Nexon scamming its players for well over a decade. And I'm not just talking about them making MMOs with cash shops and microtransactions, no.
This was huge, by the way.
We all knew that was happening, and it's pretty par for the course in the genre.
Diablo Immortal. The best microtransaction simulator in the world, boys. 800% value. You would be an idiot to not buy it.
Genre. What they were doing was way worse. After a multi-year investigation, the Korean Fair Trade Commission announced that they found Nexon guilty of unfair rate manipulation for cash shop items in MapleStory. In that game, they sell these things called cubes. These are essentially loot boxes that grant power upgrades. You buy a cube, roll the dice, and are given a random reward depending on which cubes you purchased. This can include passive stat boost and gear upgrades. The odds of getting any particular outcome from a cube were published by Nexon a few years ago, as has become industry standard for pretty much any game that sells loot boxes. Nowadays, companies will just tell you like what the percent chance you have of getting whatever it is you're looking for when you purchase some sort of a loot box. The problem in this circumstance, though, was that the actual odds were not only not as published, they were also regularly being manipulated, and the rarest, most highly coveted outcomes, the thing that pretty much everyone buying cubes was hoping to get, that was literally impossible to acquire. Your odds were actually zero. So the investigation revealed that after Nexon began selling cubes, they progressively lowered the probability of getting an item upgrade, and they blocked users from ever obtaining the most ideal stat boost combination. That most powerful role that players were wanting was never achievable. On top of doing this rate manipulation, they on several occasions made false public statements that no such changes were occurring, while those changes were in fact actively occurring.
Well, if you're gonna do it, you probably should go all in on it, honestly. Because why not? You already did the bad thing, so why stop? This is why the slippery slope argument is so always on point.
Investigation also revealed, while all of this was taking place, that Nexon had many back and forth conversations via internal emails about whether or not the company should disclose this information, but ultimately they decided against it, because of course they did. In the end, from the time MapleStory cubes were first made available for—
Hey, did you expect that not to be the case, honestly? Dude, it's a gacha game. It is what it is.
Purchase in 2010 to when this investigation took place in 2021, Nexon had made roughly $420 million from cube sales alone, and as punishment from what was discovered, the Korean FTC fined Nexon $9 million, a measly 2% tax on their earnings.
Man, that was great. The moment, dude, I knew it was gonna be small. Also, you need to understand one thing that's kind of a problem in the world. Well, you see, Nexon, the company where it is getting investigated by a part of the country where it's at. And this is very important because, you see, no country exactly is interested in the prospect of, hey, big company that makes billions in revenue a month, a year, or whatever, and is paying a lot of taxes and is making a lot of income and making the country more popular, more known throughout the world. Yeah, no one's really interested in just making that disappear. So this is why it's always why these, well, you can't even call them punishments, can you, at this point? This is why all of these slaps on the wrist are so small. Because no country really wants to ruin these companies. They just kind of want everyone to be happy and make the company stop, at least for a while.
Surely this is going to stop them from ever doing it again. Now, that story alone is crazy, but buried in there was something that I find even more concerning for the entire loot genre, for the entire MMO genre. When making all this information public, the Korean FTC released many documents and details found during its discovery process, part of which was the reveal of a patent that Nexon holds in Korea pertaining to variable rewards based on player activity. Or in other words, the idea of of changing the rate of item drops or the rewards gained from loot boxes based on the individual player. Now, I've always been aware that this sort of thing could exist and may be happening in the games that I play, but seeing actual confirmation in writing of a company officially registering their ability and intention to do so, man, as a fan of MMOs, as a fan of loot games, as a fan of ARPGs, I absolutely do not love the idea that this could be happening in the games that I'm playing today, because
no one tell him about the patents that EA, Riot Games, and Valve hold.
Nexon, they might hold the patent for this in Korea.
Oh, and Ubisoft.
Yeah, but they don't across the entire world, and that's where the concern comes in. Now, what exactly am I talking about? Well, let's take a look. The patent for dynamic rates includes the following. If a lot of user activity, decrease rates. Increase rates if users have low activity. Change
Makes
rates
sense.
based on player location. If gacha items exceed expected number or set amount, decrease rates. Change rates based on number of friends on buddy list. Change rates based on buddy list stats. Change rates for certain gacha items above some rarity. Change rates based on users' current items. So some of these aren't really that bad, and in fact, I would say there's parts of this that are totally normal and expected from MMOs, but a lot of them are pretty nefarious, especially the ones that pertain to items being purchased from the cash shop. Let's consider the implications here, starting with the most benign. So number 3, that says change rates based on player location. This one's actually totally normal, like having the rates of item drops change based on your location in game. That happens in most MMOs, as far as I'm concerned. Here we would be talking about things like loot tables that are tied to certain areas. So for example, in the Elder Scrolls Online, there are item sets that will only drop when you are in a particular zone. These are referred to as overland sets. So when you're out farming in Rivenspire, you've got like a 1% chance or something of getting a piece of the necropotent set from any of the mobs that you kill. But as soon as you leave that zone, that rate drops to 0. You will
Okay. I think he's misunderstanding something here. None of these things are good. Okay, this is none of these things are good by themselves, but you need to understand what's the actual psychological point of all of these stupid changes, and that is actually very easy. All of this together is just designed to work in tangent. Okay, all of this is designed to push people in buying boxes. Every aspect of this. And I've got really confused about what he said at the start here about the zone probability. I don't think that's what it means. I think it works like this. When you this is my suspicion. I don't know if this is true, but if you open a box, I think other people can see that you opened the box and that you got something good or bad or whatever. Probably you don't see the bad, but if someone opens something and they get something like wow, rare, then other people see it. Which means that this most likely is, hey, if you start opening boxes in an area that's full of people, and most likely there's also an account of how many adjacent people are also big spenders, that you have a bigger chance of actually getting a drop, because it shows everyone the drop probably, which means other people are going to be enticed into also buying boxes, because look at this guy. He's opening boxes and getting so much stuff. It's amazing. I also will buy boxes. I think that's the point behind this list. Well, the location list. I don't think that has anything to do with overworld dungeon drops or anything like that. Now, obviously, it could have something to do with that, but I think that's just that kind of thing. Because the point of all of these changes is to gouge people into buying more boxes constantly, and to make other people want to buy the boxes. For example, last video, I remember Force explained about the friend list thing. It is, if someone opens a box and they get something good, all of their people in the friend list get notified that, hey, he opened a loot box and got amazing stuff. So, again, all of these changes are not just designed to make a single person buy loot boxes more, but it's designed to also entice for everyone else to buy loot boxes around them, because they get enthralled with the idea of winning big.
As soon as you leave that zone, that rate drops to 0. You will never get it outside of the zone. Or you've got the items that will only drop in particular dungeons or raids, and we're not just talking boss loot, but dungeon-wide loot tables. So for example, in World of Warcraft, you're only going to get set pieces of the Scarlet Mail set while farming mobs in the Scarlet Monastery. So this one makes sense, not at all surprising. It's pretty much what I expect. It's what a lot of MMOs do. But that, of course, is just one interpretation of that line, because the other one could be not that it refers to adjust rates based on player location in game, but that it adjusts rates based on player location in the real world. So depending on where you are in the world, what region you are, where your IP address pings you at, they will then make adjustments to the rates. And of course, this would likely be
also, yeah, I actually didn't. Yeah, that also sounds plausible.
Referring to things like, depending on the country that you're located and the particular variation of the game that they want you to have, they will adjust the drop rates, the rates that you acquire currency, the rates that you acquire resources, how that may or may not be tied into changes into the progression depending on the part of the world that you're in, or maybe changes to the cash shop, so they might want to incentivize you to make purchases by reducing your rates in certain regions and not in other regions. That is the other more malicious variation and interpretation of this line of adjusting rates based on player location. But then we move on to checking numbers 1 and 2. Number 1 says if a lot of user activity decrease rates, and the ability to increase rates for users with low activity. Now, these are pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, this is common. This is really common. By the way, all the games in the West already use this. Go play something like Raid Shadow Legends, log back in after a year, and open up some crystals. Congratulations, 1 billion legendaries. Easy.
But again, think of the implications. So if you play a game a lot, your odds of getting higher rarity items could then be decreased by the developer. Or if you take a break, when you return, your rates might get bumped up, meaning you're more likely to get better loot. And I get why a developer would want to use a system like this. So if you've got someone, for example,
by the way, look at this. There's so much mobs, but this actually never happens in the game. Sad.
Who stops playing your game for some extended period of time, when they return, you want to give them incentive to stick around. So yeah, why not shower them with legendaries, drop a best in slot stat roll on some items that they get, make them feel really good so they want to keep on playing. And hey, in that circumstance, if you're that player, that sounds pretty great, right? But boy, does it suck for anyone actively playing the game, because the flip side of this coin is that the longer you play, they could potentially make it less likely that you get good items. Literally punish.
Yeah, because you're addicted. Essentially, that's the easy explanation here. If you're playing 12 hours a day, every day, yeah, believe it or not, that's really easy to detect for, the owner of the game. And that makes it, yeah, they can probably lower the rates for you. Well, initially, admittedly, again, everything here is designed very intentionally. For example, for people who have not bought loot boxes, everything that you do in the game potentially will be increased into getting you to buy a loot box. And when you buy that first loot box, baby girl, 8 billion% value. You're gonna get that epic, you're gonna get that legendary, you're gonna get that mount, you're gonna get that everything, okay? Because they need to suck you in. And after they suck you in, whoop, decrease the rates. Because you're already addicted to the game, and now you know the glories of opening loot boxes and gambling, which is great fun, obviously. So, they need to lower your rates because you're going to buy those loot boxes now constantly. There's no way to avoid it. It is what it is. Your fate has been sealed. Everything here can be maliciously exploited. Again, it's so easy. This is like basic psychology. Person does not do, well, find ways to push them into that direction. Make them do things that are adjacent to it and end up at that location, right? It's very simple.
punishing the most dedicated people playing the game. This would also be an effective way for a developer to pad out playtimes, for example. Like when you see someone who is clearly dedicated, they're playing the game every single day for multiple hours, why not dial back their rewards just a little bit, and they may very well end up playing for longer. That is, if they don't just quit out of frustration, and finding that balance would be the key, right? And maybe that explains why I got a nearly perfectly rolled bow on my falconer like 10 hours into playing Last Epoch. But in the 40 hours that I played since, every other one that's dropped has sucked, and I've only found a single version of this bow with any legendary potential, and it had nearly the worst possible stat rolls it could have. Maybe if I stop playing for a few...
Well, I really doubt that Last Epoch does that, but you know, in general, would Diablo Immortal do that? Yes. Yes.
Few weeks, I'll finally get the good drops that I'm looking for when I return. Am I assuming that's happening in Last Epoch? No, not necessarily. I assume it's probably just part of the RNG experience, but now we've got that seed of doubt, knowing that it's possible these rates could be manipulated based on player playtime. We've got Nexon with an active patent for that exact thing in Korea. Could other developers be doing it in other games and other parts of the world that are being made? I mean, it's possible. We can't say it's not possible because clearly we know people can do it. It's within the realm of possibility. And this is where things get a little tricky, right? Because obviously this could all just be chalked up to RNG. Me not getting a great bow for my falconer in 40 hours. It could just be random luck of the draw. It is probably just random luck of the draw. I'm not a conspiracy theorist here, but we have to talk about the possibilities. And that's where
you should be, because conspiracies are real.
The issue lies. Loot in these games and MMOs and ARPGs and looter shooters, it is random by design. You get random drops with random stats and affix rolls adjusted by the in-game circumstances that you're partaking in, like how you're going to get better rewards and they're going to occur more frequently as your level gets higher, as you push into harder content, and the types of content that you're doing. Some combination and variation of all of these things will affect the loot drops that you're getting. It is part of the genre. Randomness has always been in these games. It is built in, but knowing that there could also then be this extra added layer where a developer is punishing you, not based on the content that you're doing, the difficulty of the content, the known mechanics that are within the game, but just based on your frequency of playtime, that's not really great.
EA already does this, by the way, if anyone's wondering.
I mean, I guess it's not bad for the person who takes a break and then gets better loot when they return, but it is pretty shit for the users who are
other games do this thing in matchmaking. They make people play against other people who have super rare skins, so they get enticed to buying those skins and whatnot.
Playing daily and then are being rewarded with worse odds, with worse loot drops. And just knowing that developers could be doing this, yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks the wind out of the sails, right? It's sort of like when you get these games that have built-in RMT. So if I'm just farming for gold and resources within a game, most of the time I'm under the assumption that this is just part of the game playing experience. Everything is good. I will farm gold for hours so long as the game is mechanically satisfying and interesting and I'm enjoying the experience and I'm working towards some sort of a set goal. That's just part of playing the game. But yeah, the second a game has officially supported built-in RMT, that veil gets lifted a bit. Like when I can see, say it costs for 1,000 gold, you can get that for $10, but it takes 5 hours of grinding in game to farm 1,000 gold. At that point, I just kind of feel like I'm working for $2 an hour. I don't love it. And the similarity between these two things here is that it's just really demotivating. The same as farming gold for $2 an hour in games that have RMT, or knowing that the game could, the longer you're playing, reduce the odds of you getting good gear. That can sure really ruin the experience. And then we've got numbers 5, 6, and 8, which are sort of along these same lines. Change rates based on the number of friends on your buddy list. Change rates based on your buddy list stats, or change rates based on the user's current items. These kind of mesh together and follow the same general idea as above. They're making
it makes sense.
Changes.
Again, all of these things are designed to work in tandem. They obviously have an effect solo-handed because, you know, there's no such thing as these things work in tangent, but they don't work separately. That's just not a thing that really happens in this world often. There can be situations like that, but typically those things will work on their own also. But all of this is just, again, they want you to buy. They're gonna force you to buy. What do you think sales are? Yeah. Do you think, hey, how many people are gonna leave Steam while having, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 100 games or however many games on Steam. This is why you sometimes get shit for free on Steam, because, hey, free shit that you own is still free, and things that you own, and you don't want to say no to that. You don't want to say goodbye. Everything is a manipulation. That's why you should never read psychology books, because when you understand this, every hello is just another manipulation to get something out of you, which makes your life a little bit inconvenient.
Just based on things pertaining to you, but not based on the game's built-in mechanics. It's so like too many people on your friends list, sorry, you're gonna start getting worse loot. If you have really bad loot, on the plus side, we're gonna start boosting you up. When it comes to the positive implications of this, we're all gravy, but it's the other side that just things get a little scary. And the absolute worst stuff, though, really, is the dynamic rates as they pertain to cash shop items. So that's number 4 and 7. If gacha items exceed expected number or set amount, decrease rates, and also changes rates for certain gacha items above some rarity. That one's pretty explicit. I assume that's happening. But number 4, boy, if you're opening a ton of loot boxes and you get a few good items in a row, hey, guess what? They're gonna nerf your rates, which means if you buy more boxes, you should expect to get garbage for a while. Now, if the implementation of this one,
it also most likely has a timed CD. There is a chance of that, because this would be pretty bad. Imagine, so you buy 10 loot boxes, you open 3. 1 had nothing, 2 had great things. This system would now make it so that the last 7 loot boxes probably don't have anything really good in it. Maybe the last 1 or 2 loot boxes had something almost decent in them, but who knows? Now, you have bought these loot boxes, you open those 3, and now you wait. There is probably something also that makes it so if you wait long enough, your chances to go up are already. Because the more time these loot boxes that you paid real money for stay in your inventory, and you have not opened them, the more free they are in a person's opinion. Now, you paid money for it, but considering how much time has passed, you no longer care about the money, you no longer remember spending the money, it's essentially free. They're now there in your inventory for free. And if enough time passes, chances are you open those loot boxes and that RNG is high again. Now, admittedly, how much time does needs to pass for this to work like that? I have no idea. But I am assuming that there is a system like that that accounts for the idea that after money has been spent, people forget about spending the money. Because this is something there's 100% chance they take that into account.
One is as it sounds, is as I assume it is. I mean, that should be illegal, right? Like, I get it. It's kind of similar to gambling. Sure, in gambling, you've got low odds for every single pull of the slot machine, but sometimes you win, and that's great. But I assume it is super illegal and against gambling laws to decrease the rates of someone once they win. I mean, that sounds illegal, but legality...
No, that is not illegal, in fact. Well, no, actually, there was some kind of stupid thing, workaround almost, that made it I don't remember this, but it could be either or, because I think there was some kind of stupid workaround that exists for this. But yeah, anyway, I think that's it. This is just super scummy, and they're gonna implement it more because patterns like this already exist for EA. EA has it for their sports games. These probability things work on packs that you open there. They already have matchmaking algorithms like that are also designed about paying and not paying and whatnot. A lot of things. This is already happening everywhere. People just don't really know about it. Anyway, that was Forest Gaming, and this was Quizzer Sensei. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye bye.